I'm so happy you're here. We are going to have an amazing discussion today, I hope. And let me tell you how that's, first of all, going to happen. My name is Sarah Fisk, and I am a coach. I'm a teacher. I work for a life coach school called the Life Coach School. I'm an instructor, and I also have a coaching practice where I coach women in groups or one-to-one. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that at the end. But I want to first just kind of give you an overview of how this is going to work so that you know what to expect. First of all, I have some information for you about people pleasing. And by the time we are done with this webinar, you will have a much better idea of where your own people pleasing comes from, like what causes it. I'm going to just turn this to the side for a second. And how to stop, how to begin to stop. Now, I have been working with people pleasers for many years, and the biggest one has been myself. So my own people pleasing was something that I had a very hard time recognizing, because I felt like, to say no to people, and I was able to kind of stand up for myself in some ways, but there were so many things that my brain was constantly doing. I was constantly replaying past events and wishing I had said something different, or worrying about what I had said. What did that person think of me because I said that thing? I was constantly trying to figure out how to control other people's opinions of me. I would spend a lot of time blaming myself for things that had gone wrong, figuring out how I needed to fix things. I lived with a constant bully in my brain who was always telling me that the things I was doing was wrong, the things that I was doing were never enough, that people didn't like me, that people weren't going to think what I wanted them to think of me. And so if you have had some of those same experiences, if you feel like you are constantly replaying events in the past and wondering where you went wrong, or wishing you had done something differently, or worrying about events in the future, if you are not able to say no to things that you don't really want to do, if you're spending time with people that you don't really like, but you just feel like you have to, or that you should, if you have trouble voicing your opinion, speaking up for yourself, if you live with that constant brain bully that I'm describing, this just a constant nagging or negative voice in your head, you are in the right place, because we're going to be able to resolve a lot of that today as I explain to you how people pleasing is a part of this. So today you'll learn exactly why you people please, and you'll begin to be able to resolve it. And so that is what is in this for you. I understand that your time is important and that you have showed up here to give me some of it. I really want to make sure that when you leave, you have some usable, relevant information that right off the bat will help you. I cannot overemphasize the value of time, not only the time that you're giving me now, but the time that we spend worrying, obsessing, replaying events, wishing we had done something different, blaming ourselves and thinking about how we can fix a certain situation if someone is mad or upset with us. By far and away, every single woman that I talk to, when I ask them to answer this question, it's very insightful, and I'm going to ask you to answer it. And there's a couple different ways that you and I can interact during this webinar. So number one, I actually have the chat box open, and the chat can be seen by everyone who's here on our call today. If you want to answer where just I can see it, you're going to look for the little Q&A box that's at the bottom of the Zoom window. So chat can be seen by everyone. Q&A can only be seen by me. And here's the question I want you to answer in one of those two boxes. How many hours a day do you spend worrying, about other people's opinions of you, obsessing over past events that already happened, but you keep replaying them, worrying that you made the wrong choice or did the wrong thing or said the wrong thing. Worrying about future events, things that haven't happened yet. Like, you know that they're going to ask someone to take on this job, this volunteer position at the elementary school. You know that they're going to ask you to do it. And so you avoid or pretend or even lie because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where it's going to be uncomfortable for you to say no. So how many hours a day do you spend like up here in your brain, spinning, obsessing, worrying, replaying, blaming, criticizing, judging either yourself or others? And go. Yeah, the most of the day, 50% of the time used to be the better part of a day. Okay, that is really telling because your body is doing something, right? All of you have things to do through the day. I am home working, so my body is, doing things. I'm folding laundry, but my brain would just obsess over and over and over constantly. I didn't say the right thing. I should have said that. Maybe if I go back, I can say this and it will kind of feel better. All of that. It's going to be really important for you to hang on to this number. Most women that I talk to, it is between 3 and 5 hours a day. Let's just take 3 on the low end because we're going to do a little bit of math. Okay. So 3 hours a day times 7 days a week, it's 21 hours a week that your brain is spinning, obsessing, worrying, replaying, avoiding, criticizing, judging. Times 52 weeks a year, that's 1,092 hours on the low end that most women's brains are just hemorrhaging energy because they're worrying, obsessing, replaying, judging, criticizing, all of those things. And what I want for every woman is to get those hours back. That's what I want, is for you to have 1,000 extra hours a year to do something else, whatever you want. Do you want to learn how to knit? Do you want to climb Mount Everest? Do you want to keep parrots? Do you want to go back to school and get a job? That part of it's not important. The part that is important is that because of people pleasing, we lose hours and hours and hours, thousands of hours over the course of our lifetime, 1,000 hours on the low end a year. So what you will leave with is a concrete idea of where this people pleasing comes from, how to stop so that you can get those hours back for you to do whatever you want with. Okay, so let's get started. You can ask me questions a couple different ways. You can ask me questions. The best place is in the Q&A because the chat, sometimes they disappear and I don't get to them. So if you for sure have a question you want me to answer, put it in the Q&A. I will answer all of them at the end of the presentation, unless I see one that really needs to be clarified. Also, at the end, I want to talk with you about an opportunity to do this work with me on a very deep, focused level for 16 weeks. So keep that in mind, and I'll explain that at the end of our time together. All right. So the most important thing for you to understand about people pleasing are these 4 things that I'm going to tell you. Okay. Number 1, we're born with needs. And we have a lot of needs, but for the sake of like focusing our discussion today, I want to just focus it onto a couple different needs. There's an amazing body of evidence that you can read and plug into on the web about how these needs develop and what they are. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a very popular, kind of easy to understand way to to kind of conceptualize what we are programmed to need as humans. And I've taken from his work and then from the work of some other people, but we're going to talk about these needs: safety, security, and predictability. That is a basic need. We need to know what is coming next, if we're going to be safe, if we're going to be taken care of. And we need approval, belonging, love, acceptance, and friendship. Those are the needs, the family of needs that we're going to talk about in terms of people pleasing, because I think it'll make it easy to understand. So number one, we have needs, and we cannot turn these off. The only people who don't have these needs fall outside of what is mentally described as healthy. So sociopaths don't have these needs, right? Sociopaths never worry about what other people are thinking, right? So we have needs and we can't turn them off. And anyone who doesn't have these needs, they fall outside of what is mentally considered healthy. Okay. So if you feel these needs a lot in your life, guess what? Your brain is working exactly as it was programmed to work, and you are exactly where we should in terms of human needs. We are born into a group, whether it is a parent figure, whether grandparents raise us, but we are born into groups. And our parents or our primary caregiver, whoever that is, they teach us the rules, the roles, and they give us rewards of our groups. So your family is a group. Your church community is a group. Your neighborhood, your town, your country, your cultural group, your language group. We are born into all different kinds of groups, and that's to help us. That's to help us survive. And it's to help provide some of these needs like safety and security and predictability, approval, belonging. You can see how groups that we're born into help provide for these needs. It's fantastic. And it's our parents and our primary caregivers who teach us what it means to be in this group. So for example, the group that I belonged to first was my family. The rules in my family: you work very hard. You work a lot. Everything is work. Like fun is for after the work is done, but because there's always more work, we don't have a lot of fun, and fun shouldn't be overly sought after, because work is the most important part of what we do as a family together. So I want you to do this. Think back to the first group you belonged to, which is your family. Tell me some of the rules in your family. What are some of the things, like I just described? We work, then we work some more. We don't seek after a lot of fun because that gets in the way of work. In my family, my parents were the ultimate source of authority, and we didn't question what our parents said. We really, obedience was very, very important in my family. Obeying the first time, obeying without asking questions, obeying without complaining. So as you start to think of some of the rules of your group, share them or write them down. Either way, doesn't matter. Oh, Camille, in her family, we don't cry, right? We don't express emotion, or we don't have emotions that can be perceived a certain way, like maybe crying. Okay. For some families, the rules are we have to look good in front of everybody else. We always have to have our stuff together, right? We can't ever let other people see us in disarray or in out of order, right? Appearances are very, very important. That's the rules in some families. So as you think about the rules for you, let me introduce the next word: roles. So primary caregivers also teach us what role you play in that group. So for example, I was the oldest of 6 children. My mom had 6 children in 10 years, very close together. And so I was the helper. I was the oldest. Some of that was just out of necessity, right? With a lot of little kids, she needed help. And I learned that one of my roles was as the helper. And I got rewarded for keeping the rules and the roles in my group. And that's just how it works. That's how it works for our survival. And that just is how our life here on planet Earth is set up. We come with needs and then we get into groups, and those groups have rules. And the first people who teach us about those rules are our primary caregivers. So then people pleasing is how we get those needs met. Our primary caregivers teach us, for example, in my family, Sarah, it's important to help and to work hard. And so I help and I work hard, and then I get approval, I get belonging, I get those needs met. Remember all of those needs in number 1. And it becomes an exchange. We call it people pleasing now, but when we're little, we don't know it's people pleasing. We're just getting our needs met. So I keep the rules, I get rewarded. I honor my role as the helper, I get rewarded. My needs get met. My mom tells me, thank you so much, Sarah. You are such a big help to me. I don't know what I would do without you. And so it's reinforced to me, it's good. It's good to be a helper. It's good to keep the rules. I get rewarded for it. And that's how we go for years and years and years. We keep the rules, we fulfill our roles, we get rewarded, and we get our needs met. And it's great until number 3. At some point, as we go along, we develop a self. The self develops. And the self just means we become aware, like, wait a second, I am a person and I have my own needs and wants. And sometimes the self comes into conflict with the roles, the rules, and the rewards. Now, anyone who's had a teenager knows what I'm talking about, right? Anyone who's had a 2-year-old knows what I'm talking about. I don't want to. No, I don't want to. So this self doesn't develop all at once. It develops over time. And we are never, ever told, hey, these rules and the roles that you've been given as part of this group, someday you might not want to keep them, and that's totally fine. What we are told is it is imperative, it is important that at all cost, you keep the rules of our group. You keep the roles you've been assigned. Because remember, that teaching comes to us from the people who we think love us most, who do most of the time have our best interests at heart. Sometimes they don't. But this conflict happens because not only are we becoming our own person, but nobody ever tells us you can break the rules. Yeah, if you don't want to be the helper anymore, you don't have to be the helper. Because the rewards that we get for those things keep us doing them. So we are born with needs. The groups that we belong to satisfy those needs for us and give us rules to obey, roles to keep, and they reward us for keeping those roles and rules. And so that lays the groundwork for people pleasing, because we exchange what we do for approval, for security, for friendship, for love, for belonging. It's an exchange and it works. And the self the whole time is developing. And at some point, who we want to be is in conflict with the rules and the roles and the rewards that we've been getting. And that's when our needs are not met, when we don't know how to get those needs met by ourselves, we self-abandon and we go back to the group to get those needs met. Because we don't know that we can break the rules. We don't know that it's an option to not carry on that role. And so when we are not able to meet our own needs for safety, for acceptance, for friendship, for love, we abandon ourselves and we go back to the group so that the group can meet our needs. So for example, I grew up with the role of the helper. It's a very, very powerful pull for me to help other people. When myself was developing, one of the things that myself wanted was what I wanted with helping other people, because powerful reward for me to be approved of, to have people say, Sarah is such a hard worker, really adept at helping other people. And is my sound cutting out? See, I'm going to lay my microphone there on the side of the table. Tina, is that better? Is my mic stable now? Okay, thank you so much for letting me know. Yeah, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. This little mic, the cord is. Okay, all right, I just want to make sure. All right, so it started cutting out. Okay, all right, I'm not to number 4 yet, so I'm still up here. So we have to have our needs met. And when we don't have an opportunity to meet our needs ourselves, we go back to the group to get them met. So let me restart with my example. So I was conditioned and taught to be a helper, which sounds like a fantastic thing, right? Who wouldn't want to be a helper? But as myself developed, myself was like, I don't want to spend all of my time helping other people. I want some of my time for me. But my group, remember in my group, the rules are you help and you work hard. And so if I were to say, I don't want to help this much, my group would say, that's selfish, that's wrong. That goes against the rules of our group. And so I would not be able to get that need met in my group. Does that make sense? I would have an unmet need for safety or for security or for predictability or for belonging. And so I might decide to abandon that self, the self who wants more time to do what she wants to do. I would say, look, I'm really sorry, but I need to feel secure. I need to feel safe. And so I'm going to go back to the group. It's not that well thought out, right? Because remember, we've been making this exchange of where we do what the group wants, we keep the rules, we honor our role, and we get rewarded. We've been doing that for a really long time. So we're not even fully aware that that's what we're doing. It's a pattern that we have just developed over years and years and years. So whenever there is a chance that one of our needs won't get met, we abandon ourselves and we go back to the group. And we continue to people please to meet our needs until we learn to meet our own needs. So in the beginning, the group meets our needs for predictability, for belonging. All of these needs are met by the groups that we belong to. Then we develop the strong sense of self. And for a little while, we still self-abandon because we're worried that we won't get those needs met until we develop the ability to meet our needs ourselves. Until we create our own safety, approval, predictability, acceptance, belonging, love, and friendship. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for just a second and take some questions before we move on. This is why people pleasing happens. We have needs, groups meet those needs. We develop a self, and sometimes the self is in conflict with the group. We abandon ourselves because we want to be part of the group. We want to keep the rules. And so as we go along, more and more the conflict is between here's who I am as a person, or here's who I want to be, and here's what is expected of me. Any questions about that? So Tammy, so we need to make our own rules based on your real self? Yes. Yes, but that can only happen when you are capable of creating safety and approval, these things for yourself, which is why it is so, it's like poison to beat yourself up, to judge yourself, to be mean to yourself. Because what that means is you are not safe with you. You don't have your own approval, your own acceptance. Tammy, does that answer your question? Okay. We're going to go on. We can always come back to this. So this is why people pleasing happens. It's set up that way. It's supposed to happen, right? There's no other way for it to happen. The problem is we're never told, like, hey, kid, I'm going to take care of you for a while. This group is who you're going to belong to for a little while, but you're going to develop your own sense of yourself as a person. And that might not match the groups you belong to, the expectations that they have of you, the rules for belonging. And you're going to get to decide whether or not you want to continue to belong to these groups. What we are told is that belonging at all costs is what matters. And so that's when people pleasing becomes this behavior that we can't get out of. Because we don't have safety, we don't have approval, we don't have belonging that we create for ourselves. So we keep going back to the group to get it. That is what I really hope is clear for you. When we cannot create these things for ourselves, we need them. That need is not, remember, we can't turn it off. So we will go back to the groups or to other people to get these needs met until we develop the skill to create these things for ourselves. All right, Kimberly had a question. Oh, okay. If you have chosen many times to still take on the role of helper with full desire to do it, and now you also want to take some time for self-care rather than getting compassion fatigue or burnout. Okay, Kimberly, I'm going to answer the question I think you're asking, and you tell me if I'm off, because I don't know that I totally understand it. So when I talk with women who are in people pleasing, their first concern is that if I stop people pleasing, I will be selfish, mean, I won't do anything for anyone ever again. And that is particularly interesting because Women are taught that above all, you have to be nice, you have to be generous, you have to be giving. And so sometimes when we think about not people pleasing, we still want to preserve the opportunity and the ability to do things for other people, to show up and help other people when we want to. It is not a question of either or. If you are using your role as a helper, for example, it's what I did for forever because you can't not do it. I was using my role as a helper to get these needs met. And then the groups to which I belonged, some of them, I didn't want to belong to them anymore. And so I had to figure out how to create this for myself so that I could take my safety, take my approval with me wherever I went. And it wasn't dependent on someone else giving it to me. Someone else wasn't in charge of it. And so when someone else is in charge of your safety and your acceptance and your self-approval, you're always going to be going to them to get it from them. But when my approval was an inside job, I could still totally decide to help. I could still completely be available to bake cookies for the PTA, to sign up to help with such and such thing. But it came from, here's the huge difference. Rather than doing it so that I could get something, rather than offering my help so that I could get approval or acceptance, I already had approval and acceptance. I had my own approval and acceptance. And so I didn't need it from someone else. I could just show up with the cookies. I could just show up and help. And I didn't need anything from the other person. That is what freedom feels like. And that's what I call self-connection. Because rather than being connected to all these outside people and groups, like, do you approve of me? Are you going to accept me? Do I belong here? You connect, you bring all of those needs, as many as possible. And this is a process. It's not something that happens overnight, but you bring all of those needs inside. You bring all of that work inside for you to do for you. And then when I am the generator of my own safety, my own approval, my own acceptance, my own belonging, then I can go places and do stuff, do whatever I want, because it's not dependent on that exchange anymore, where I do this for you and then you give me something that I need. I still do a lot of things that I used to do when I was a people pleaser. A lot of them. It's just from a different place. It's a different energy because I know that no matter what, I can take care of myself in this area of needs. And if someone else is going to deny me acceptance or tell me that they don't approve of me, I'm okay with that. All right. Fern, for me, this is a huge window into whether I'm doing it out of people pleasing or out of my own heart. It's when I feel like I have a choice or not. Fern, I love this. If I feel like I don't have a choice, I'm people pleasing 100%. Because remember, I really want you to, these needs have to be met. And sometimes the reason why we don't feel like we have a choice is because we can't see a way to do what we want and get these needs met. So when you have a choice, it's because you have developed the ability to create and meet these needs, to create the solution for these needs on your own. Love that, Fern. Okay, so here is how you resolve people pleasing. So number one, whenever you're in a situation, let's imagine that you are in a situation in which you people please. Everyone think of something. Okay. I am still, let's see, I am still likely to people please when it comes to my parents. I still want to help them and do things. And sometimes it can go over into people pleasing. And I think for a lot of us, the relationship with parents is one where we need to do a lot of work and observation. So the first thing to do is when you are in a situation and you feel that urge to people please, or you've already done it, identify which need you are trying to get met. So when I am thinking about doing something for my parents that I might not necessarily want to do, which of these needs am I trying to get met? It's definitely approval and love, right? Still feeling like their love for me is dependent on, now, whether or not it's true or not, doesn't even matter, because if it's true in my head, that's where I'm going to be taking the action from, is what I believe is true. So I'm likely to people please my parents because I want approval and love from them. Okay. So the first thing to do is, in a situation where you are going to people please, identify which need you are trying to get met. Okay. I'm just trying to belong here. I'm just trying to feel loved. I'm trying to feel safe. Many, many of the needs that we seek to meet are safety. I just want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. So once you have identified which need you are trying to get met, it's important to breathe. Big, deep breaths, because many times not getting these needs met feels dangerous, feels risky. I mean, when you think about not having approval, when I think about not having the approval of my parents, not having the approval of friend groups, not having the acceptance of my family or my culture, that can feel dangerous. And many, many of us learned to people please to feel safe. In fact, it is a trauma response. It is a trauma response because we are taught, remember, trauma responses or danger responses are fight, flight, freeze. Another one of them is fawn, F-A-W-N, fawn. And fawning is essentially people pleasing. And we do it to get our needs met. So once you identify which needs you're trying to get met, you breathe and you give yourself some time and some space and some compassion. Okay, what do I mean by that? So let's say my parents come to me and they have a request. They want me to do something. Immediately, I start to get that kind of nervous feeling and I identify which need I'm trying to get met. Okay, Sarah, you're trying to feel like you belong. You want some love and some approval here. It's totally fine. I take some deep breaths and maybe I tell my mom, I'm going to call you back about that. She has a request. I tell mom, like, let me think about that. I'm going to call you back. So I give myself some time and space. I don't answer right away. And then I give myself some compassion. And here's what that looks like. Of course, you want approval. Of course, you're just trying to feel like you belong. Of course, you're just trying to feel like mom is happy with you. That's so normal. That's programmed. Like your brain is working exactly how it's supposed to. But then I ask myself a really important question, which is, what does my self want? Does my self want to do the thing that mom has asked me to do? When I ask and I listen, say the answer is no, I don't want to do the thing that she's asked me to do. So then I need to meet my own need for safety, my own need for belonging. Like I need to really come to myself and say, Sarah, no matter what, I approve of you. You belong to me. You have my full acceptance. You're safe with me. Meet my needs. And then remember my reasons for why this self doesn't want to do it, right? Now, this can get a little tricky because one of the things that women are also taught is that whenever you don't want to do something that's being asked of you, you have to have really good reasons for not doing it. I want to tell you that that's not true. If your self does not want to do something, when you check in with you, like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this thing? Do you want to be a part of this? And the answer is no, that is enough. That yourself, your soul, your heart, your spirit, your essence, whatever you call that, doesn't want that is enough. And so if you have some other reasons why you don't want to do the thing, that's fine. I don't have enough time. It's not really how I want to spend my day, whatever, all that's fine. But just know that if yourself just doesn't want to, that's also enough. So sometimes I have reasons and I share them. Sometimes I don't. But mostly what I remember is myself, that part of me not wanting to, it's enough. So I meet my own needs for safety, for belonging. And then I remember why I don't want to do this. I breathe, lots of breathing, just really staying present. Why breathing? Breathing is the conscious way that we slow everything down. When we are feeling like something might be risky or dangerous, like when it's not feeling safe, the brain will start to speed things up. What about this? What about this? You need to do that. You need to talk to her. You need to fix that. You need to do that. What's the matter with you? You need to stop. You shouldn't be doing this. Like everything gets faster and faster and more noisy. Have you noticed? So that's why we slow everything down by breathing, by taking such good care of ourselves. You belong to me. I'm here. And then we can decide what we want to do. Like, I don't want to do the thing. And then we need to have our own back. And what I mean by that is to never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, beat yourself up over a decision that you've made. You are so kind and so gentle and so good and so loving to yourself, even if you look back on the decision that you made and you wish you'd made a different decision. It's totally fine. Wishing that you had made a different decision does not make you bad or wrong. So don't treat yourself like you're bad or wrong, because you're not. Having your own back is so important because it continues to meet your needs for safety, for acceptance, for belonging. Those needs are never going to go away, and we don't want them to go away. That's what helps us be a cohesive society where we take care of each other and we can have relationships. Remember, the psychopaths who don't have those needs to meet. But we want to be able to meet those needs ourselves, to bring those needs in so that we can then go out into the world, have our own back, and stop people pleasing, to stop doing the things that we don't want to be doing anymore from a place of needing someone to meet our needs. Because we might decide to do the same things that we've been doing before, but it will just come from a different place. It will come from this place of securely meeting our own needs and then taking that safety and security with us wherever we go. And this is what I call self-connected leadership, which is the opposite of people pleasing. People pleasing is when you go get your needs met by other people and other things by giving them what they want. Self-connected leadership is when you disconnect from all of those outside sources of approval and you connect to you and you meet those needs yourself. It doesn't mean that you are not in relationships, that you don't ever want or need to be with anybody else. Not at all. It just means that the foundation of that you take care of for you. Nobody else can make you feel unsafe. Or that's okay. I want to be clear. It's not that it's black and white. It's just that when you do feel unsafe, when you do feel like you're looking for approval or acceptance, you know how to give that to yourself. That's a better way of saying it. What are your questions or observations about this? Totally want to know what's going on inside your brain. Is this making sense? Where do you see the opportunity in this list of resolving people pleasing? Where do you see your opportunity to do some work? Burns said, this totally explains some massive shifts in my life in the past 3 weeks in being able to connect with certain people to just share versus going to them for their approval and acceptance. It makes all the difference in trust and relationships. Okay, Fern, I love that so much. We can still have friendships, have relationships, but the difference that happens is you are not requiring those people to meet your needs anymore. You are doing it. You're capable of providing yourself with the acceptance and approval and love that you need. Love that. Okay, anyone else? Shannon said, for me, a big question is around how do I begin to meet my own needs if I am not sure what that looks like? Okay, that's a great question. There are many, I'm going to go back here so we can see these needs. Some of the ways we meet our needs involves stopping doing some of the things we are doing right now. So Shannon, it is imperative that you stop beating yourself up so that you are safe with you. One of the things that our brain does is that it tells us is that we should be hard on ourselves. We should beat ourselves up. We deserve it. But what that creates is a lack of safety with yourself. So number one, you've got to stop beating yourself up. You've got to start giving yourself approval and love. For me, that looks like looking at myself in the eyes, in the face, in the mirror and saying, I love you so much. Yes, it feels awkward and weird in the beginning. Of course it does. It's not something we're used to, and it's not something that we're taught to need from ourselves. But creating practices around each of these things is really how you begin to do that work. Now, one of the reasons that I work with women on making this shift from getting their needs met by other people to meeting their needs on their own is because it is difficult to figure out, like, how exactly do I do this? So what I want to explain is what the value would be for you in deciding to work with me on these 4 steps in a very focused small group. So the coaching experience that I offer is 10 women who meet in a small group. Every single one of these women are people pleasers, myself included. So when we go through these 4 steps, the first thing we do is we figure out exactly which needs are not being met by you internally. We figure out what the rules are of the groups that you've belonged to, the roles that you've had, and the way you've been rewarded. This is a super important part because it sets the stage for understanding why it is that you people please in the specific way that you do. For example, maybe you grew up with a parent figure who was moody, who did not really know how to control their own emotions. And so maybe one of the rules was we need to keep dad happy. Everybody needs to keep dad happy. And your role was, I'm the one who entertains dad. I tell him funny stories. I'm the one who calms dad down when he's upset. And I get rewarded for that. So every single one of you have rules that you've been taught to keep, roles that you fulfilled your whole life, and rewards that you get for doing those things. And we need to get to the bottom of what those are so that we can understand why you people please. We also need to really get a really well-defined sense of who yourself is. What do you like? What do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to be? Like, who are you at your most real, authentic list of wants and desires? Nobody teaches us to do this. And it's for good reason, because women are taught that we are supposed to be generous and available with our time, help other people before we help ourselves. But I have a feeling many of you are in the same position that I was in, where I'm like, okay, I'm 45 years old. I've done a lot of taking care of other people. I have really developed this role of the helper. And I just don't feel like there's anything there for me. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I like. So in our group, we spend a lot of time really finding who you are, what you want. I teach you how to want. It's a skill. It's a skill, and we are not taught how to want. So we really understand this relationship between who you are, what you want, what your dreams are, what your visions are, what you want to accomplish, what you don't want to be a part of anymore, what feels heavy and extra in your life. And then this is where we spend a lot of time meeting our own needs. I give you 10 different ways, more than that, to connect to yourself. Many of these things are available just by sitting down and taking a few minutes to just do this. Put your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. Just say, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for never stopping. Like that. Super easy, super fast, available to every single person on this call right now. In fact, let's do it. Okay, let's do this together. Close your eyes. Put your hand somewhere on your body that feels comforting and good. Take a deep breath and let it out and just say, I love you. What happened? What came up? Panic, says someone. Interesting. I'm not able to do it. Something blocking, something in the way. Okay, that's important to know. So in the group coaching program, we spend a lot of time really developing the skills to meet those needs. If you feel a block, we figure out what that is. If it's hard, we want to know why. Because again, the goal is for you to get your brain space back, get your time back. Sarah says having your own back and breathing is so important, because when you start to choose yourself Those who are used to you people pleasing will not always respond well, and we have to be prepared for it. Absolutely. So when we meet our own needs, it doesn't mean that everybody's gonna be like, oh, you don't want to do this anymore? Yeah, totally fine. Yeah, I'm cool with that. No, absolutely. There might be some pushback. And so that's why it's so important to have our own backs, meaning never mistreat ourselves, provide our own needs, because we're going to need to do that. Thank you, Sarah. Great comment. Fern, I'm curious, can this be internalized and taken into pleasing all the parts of ourselves? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, Fern, so I'll answer the question I think you're asking, then tell me if I'm off. Um, it seems like you're thinking that there's like this part of me, and there's this part of me, and this part of me. And can we use this to please all those different parts of ourselves? I mean, the answer is yes. But what I hope is that you're able to take all those parts and put them together into an integrated self. So there's not parts of me. I'm not a people pleaser over here, but over here, I really have my own back and meet my own needs. You are an integrated whole person who can meet and take care of their own needs. And then that's what you take into the world. So Fern, tell me if you need any more on that. Tina, this is so good. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm so glad. For me, this applies to social media. I used to post with an unconscious need of approval from people reading, and it would make the numbers of engagement mean whether or not I was accepted. Yes, I'm so glad you see that, because again, when you love you, when you are accepted by you, you don't need other people to give that. And so you can offer something on social media. Here's what I have to say. Here's what I want to give you today. And there's no like, is somebody looking? Did they comment? Did they like it? How many likes? Do I have enough likes? Because you like you accept you. I'm so glad that was meaningful. Okay. What's going to happen next is this. You're going to get an email that has the recording of this webinar. It's going to have pictures of each of these slides that I have used, and slides. It's just my whiteboard. Someday it'll be slides. Maybe I'll get fancy. And then it's going to have a link for you to sign up for a 30-minute conversation with me that is free. I just want to know two things. Number one, was there something in this for you? Like, what did you notice? What do you think your next steps are? We will talk about that in the 30-minute conversation, and we'll see if the 16-week group is a good fit for you. Because for 16 weeks with a very small group of women who are all in this together, these are the steps we go through. And when you are done, you absolutely have an integrated sense of who you are. You know who you are. You are capable of meeting your own needs. And when women have those two things, they're unstoppable. So thank you for being here. If there are any other questions that I didn't get to and you still have them, you can send an email in response to the email that you will get, but you will shortly get that. And I really look forward to hearing your comments, to speaking with you in those 30-minute free sessions. And I will send that out in just a few minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye.